news this week from Microsoft is the release of Internet Explorer.
Amazon.com's total stock market value surged past $30 billion.
Struck a deal with eBay to sell a company at about $4.5 billion.
The first glimmers of hope were right after the dot-com bubble. You had individuals realizing that NASA was not going to do this job, so we're just going to have to do it ourselves. So this was in 2002, and I was still a kid student at Purdue, and the professors announced that this new dot-com millionaire that nobody had ever heard of was going to come visit class and give a pitch on his company. That person was named Elon Musk, and the company was SpaceX.
SpaceX and Blue Origin come around almost at the exact same time, and here's the idea. We're going to try commercial space all over again.
One of the things that was going on at the time was this prize for the first private human spaceflight. It was called the X Prize, run by the X Prize Foundation and a guy named Peter Diamandis.
Once we have private spaceships that can do this thing affordably over and over again, we would offer this tremendous frontier to benefit humanity here on Earth.
What Peter did was he realized you need a whole ecosystem of companies, and you need a lot of people trying to do this hard thing if you're going to have any hopes of a small number actually breaking out and doing it. Just like with Charles Lindbergh and the prize that he was going after, the X Prize cost hundreds of millions of dollars to be invested into this whole array of companies all trying to do it, or even if they didn't end up going after that prize, do something along those same lines. So it was just a massive boon to the industry, and that's where we really started to see things take off.
You seem like you like space.
I mean, of course. I first met Elon Musk in 1996, which is a long time ago. Now it may seem obvious, like, wow, what a great business opportunity. But back in 2008 and 2009, it was anything but. No venture firm had space as an investment category. It was our largest investment to date and one of the boldest, most audacious projects we've ever seen. You might find this amusing, but there was never a PowerPoint pitch or pitch deck, frankly, ever. And so it was a discussion. And Elon, in describing the opportunity, really focused on the near-term opportunity to do commercial cargo for NASA. There was a contract. It was worth billions of dollars to supply the space station. It was really the first bet the government was making on a commercial provider for launch. Without that contract, it would have been a very difficult proposition to fund. But what we saw was an opportunity to really restructure an entire industry that hadn't had new entrants for decades. And to do so dramatically with a software-centric, high-tech oriented approach that immediately struck us as something that could revolutionize the entire space industry and open up new vistas that weren't even possible before, like to launch disposable satellites and huge constellations and mega constellations. All that was to come. Step one was lowering the cost of access to space, and we saw SpaceX as that a key enabler. So you had an amazing entrepreneur, a unique, one-of-a-kind company with no direct competitors, and frankly, a prize, if you will, that's enormous, which is the entire space economy.
2, 1.
I'm Ashley Vance. I'm a journalist and author. I've spent many years covering the rise of commercial space. When the first time I went to visit SpaceX, it was like a religious experience, sort of. It was just so different than what I expected. I expected to see one rocket and 20 people working on it, and I walk in, and already, even in those pretty early days, there's all these rocket bodies along the floor. There were hundreds of people. There was heavy metal music playing, people welding. You could just feel this energy, and it was so different to what I had pictured in my head, and it felt so real. One of these things where you're do people know that this is happening? There's this one level where SpaceX just had to prove things out and show people that commercial space could be real, and they did that with Falcon 9. It became this steady launching vehicle. Still, even in traditional space, and the naysayers, they still thought SpaceX was a joke. They thought things like reusability would actually be the undoing of the company, that Elon would spend himself into oblivion trying to chase this both impossible and pointless exercise.
Breakthrough that's needed with rocketry is a truly reusable rocket. You know, if we're to make a revolution in space, it's got to be reusable. If you think about any mode of transport, bicycle, plane, everything.
It's just too expensive to, have at disposal.
Exactly. And thus far, it's been an elusive dream in space to create a truly reusable rocket. This is tough.
Hey, I'm not an engineer, but I can tell that's complicated.
There was a launch of what was called the F9R, the F9 reusability. This was the early days before any rocket booster had come back to be reflown. And many in the industry thought it couldn't be done. And we were there. It was going to be a 3-engine test. They put in some new navigation system and it went haywire and the rocket sort of tilted over and they had to do a detonate. And it just made this enormous kaboom because it was, pretty heavily fueled. And it spewed wreckage everywhere. Quite a scene. And I actually suggested to Elon, hey, let's go out there and look around. And as we're driving out, we get a call from someone who's quite nervous about this. And we decided to just keep going. And it was amazing. We were like seeing the aftermath of this, ambition that had a setback, right? And one of the other board members was trying to cheer Elon up and said something to the effect of, you're not learning if you're not failing, or something to that effect. He goes, considering the alternatives, I'd rather learn from success.
One of the hardest things I've ever had to do is get the liquid oxygen densification program running. So Elon coming in and saying, we're going to densify liquid oxygen to its triple point. I basically want solid oxygen on the rocket. Go make it happen. Only C I've ever gotten in my life was in thermodynamics. So of course I get handed a thermodynamics problem. And that tenacity to go turn that around and make that happen. If I wanted to go get sent out to NIST to go learn something or go talk to some other expert halfway across the world, I was given those resources to go figure it out. The first densified propellant launch. It was impressive to know that everyone at that McGregor test site put so much work into that program. And the immediate thought was, it seemed impossible and daunting, but it was way more exciting to know that we just completely changed the way people think about launch.
If you fast forward, once Falcon 9 starts to hit its stride, then they start landing the thing all the time. They're getting up to Falcon Heavy and even larger version of this. And the whole landscape has been flipped on its head. This thing that was supposed to be impossible clearly works. Traditional aerospace is still reacting to this. I mean, they had no backup plan from anybody else, and they're still 10, 15, 20 years behind because they haven't even started to design a competitor. And then if you flip to new space, these new economics are locked in everybody's head that can and should approach this all differently than we used to.
SpaceX raised $1 billion in 2015. That exceeded all prior venture investment in the space category throughout all the time, times 2. And from that point on, billions of dollars have been invested every year in the category. All kinds of new launchers and satellite companies just cropped up everywhere. Hundreds of companies cropped up.
I would interview all these people, and they had all grown up watching the Apollo program, and this had been part of their childhood. It had fed their enthusiasm, their interest in engineering, and that had just been killed over the years of space really not changing. And all that energy, that passion was unlocked because there was a new game in town, and commercial space felt real, and everyone wanted to have a crack at it, and I wanted to watch.